And welcome into the Thursday edition of Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Hope everybody is having a fabulous start to their Thursday morning here today. Joe Rexrode, how are you? What's going on?
I'm doing okay. Did you change the heading on the – my computer's acting up, so I don't know. Did you change the heading on the first topic of the day, or are you still sticking with that?
No, I'm sticking with it.
Vol stink?
Yeah, they're not good.
Oh, come on. We have to start with an argument today? We can start with an argument today.
Okay, well, I guess we could define good. Are they good enough to be a factor in the SEC in the regular season? Sure. Are they going to do anything tournament-wise? No, they're not.
You don't know that.
I do know that.
Because of last night?
Every bit of history tells me that. I do know that. Well, I know that as we sit here today, November 30th, they will not be there past the second weekend. I guarantee you.
Okay. You know they won't be in the Final Four? Okay. I mean, that's not that bold of a statement.
They won't be in the Elite Eight. They won't be in the Sweet 16.
Okay.
There you go.
They just made the Sweet 16. They just made the Sweet 16.
They will not be there.
They beat Duke and made the Sweet 16. Okay. All right. Okay. I'd like you to save this, please.
Save it.
They don't stink. Now, they played the worst defensive half I've ever seen under Rick Barnes. And there's some weird stuff going on with Santiago Vescovi, and I don't know what it is, but Rick Barnes was like, you're just going to sit the whole game, which is weird. And he just went home for something, and I don't know what's going on with him. And Dalton Connect, who, if he stays in the game, scores the most points an opponent's ever scored at North Carolina, had an awful twisted ankle. So I'd like to see how that's going to turn out.
How bad's he hurt, do we think?
Huh?
How bad's he hurt, do we think?
Well, Wes Rucker says he saw him walk into the bus with no boot or crutches. So I would think they wouldn't let him do that if they really thought there was something broken. But I also would sit him down for like 2 weeks because you just don't want that lingering all year. They were terrible defensively. North Carolina hit every shot. College hoops. What was it 2 years ago? What, Kentucky beat them by 1 million in that game? I mean, it happens in college hoops. I don't know why they wouldn't be more engaged offensively in a game like this, but they've also played an unbelievable schedule. They probably played the three best post players in America in 3 straight games, right? 3 straight? Dickinson, Edey, and now Bacat. I mean, they're pretty good, man. I'm just saying. You're right. Rick Barnes' history says they'll find a way to screw it up.
Everything about the history tells me they'll screw it up. Not one thing tells me they won't.
Well, I mean, Rick Barnes has been to the Final Four, too, so not everything tells
in once this century, he has been to the Final Four, yes.
But that means not everything tells you, right? But I think they're, a 2 seed.
They're overrated.
I think that, okay. I mean,
they're overrated.
They played poorly in the first half last night. Then they got the 20-some point lead down to 5.
Everybody's talking about them being a national championship contender, and they've been beat 3 times in a row by teams that are actually national championship contenders. They're overrated at this point. Now, that doesn't mean they can't get better, but right now they're overrated.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's teams every year, and it's different philosophies. There's teams out there right now that haven't played much of a schedule. They have a lot of confidence, and they're beating Patsies up by – Rick Barnes has gone totally the other way, which I think there's value in it, but also it means everybody gets to see all your warts right away. You got a guy coming off an ACL who has to play better. And Vescovi, I don't know what's going on with him, but it's weird. So there's a lot of stuff going on with this team. They have the pieces with Connect now to, yes, be a national championship contender. I'm sticking to that.
You stick with that.
I will. I will stick with it. Well, I'm not guaranteeing they're going to win it.
I know.
But they have the ingredients to win it. Now the Rick Barnes thing, hey, it is what it is. They did get to the Sweet 16 last year.
They did, and then they screwed that up.
They did. But FAU,
to FAU.
To FAU.
Think about what we're talking about here.
Okay,
FAU.
then FAU won the next game too.
Yes,
I don't know what to tell you.
Yes, which makes it was a gigantic blown opportunity once again by the Vols last year.
Yes.
We could keep going down the road of how much they've screwed this up.
All right. Bottom line is you wrote they stink. They don't stink.
Okay. Speaking of stink, you know how many times I watched the last segment of Koharski and us yesterday? Probably 50 times.
Yeah. Katie.
A lot of texts about that yesterday.
Katie enjoyed that one. Yeah. Okay. Got a nice text from Ryan Porth last night. What was this? This is going to be the thing now? People just talk like this now?
Yeah.
Let me just find Ryan Porth's text. 6 wins in a row for the Predators, huh? I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm starting to believe in them. Awesome. Glad we get that started.
We didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not our fault.
Exactly. Oh, just beautiful. Yesterday with Kuharski. Got a lot of reaction to that hour. If you missed it, you can check it out on Robby and Rexrode, or you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, everywhere involved with that. Got a lot to get to on the program today. John Hines making his return to Bridgestone Arena tonight as the head coach of the Minnesota Wild. Bred's going for win number 7 in a row. We'll have Dan Hinote coming up at 7:15 to look ahead to that. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports from 8 to 8:30 for his weekly visit, talking Titans and all things NFL. So looking forward to that as well. And Vanderbilt making some moves on the football side of things, which one of those is really, really interesting to me. We'll get into that coming up at 7:30. So looking forward to all that. We begin with the Vols. They lose last night. We've talked about that. Traylon Burks back at practice yesterday for the Titans in a limited capacity. So, Joe, we talked yesterday that the injury report was big heading into this game of Burks and what that could mean. And if he wasn't available again, like what does that mean for his long-term outlook for this year? And Burks back on the field in a limited capacity yesterday as the Titans prepare for the Colts. Good to see him back out there. Now we'll see if he can ramp it up and be ready to play on Sunday. And if so, what kind of a factor will he be? All those things. But first and foremost, good to see him back out on the field yesterday.
Yes, definitely. And as Teresa Walker pointed out yesterday, I think it's a little different because with concussions you don't know, but obviously, anything more, you could have gone to IR with him. I think the concussion unpredictability changed that a little bit, but Easton Freeze took a photo and tweeted it, and I thought it was a good catch. He has what the heck is the name of the thing? He's got he's wearing one of those things that like helps basically like stabilize the head kind of thing. And if anybody remembers what it's called, I can try to find it. I would try to find it, but my computer is acting like I'm logging into AOL in 1996 right now, so I can't.
No dial-up
look
sound
for it. Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Beautiful.
That's who just heard that in their ear in their car. Sorry.
Good to see Burks back out there yesterday. We'll see if he can ramp things up and build on that. Levis on the injury report with an ankle injury. He was a limited participant, and TD put out a video of Levis kind of going through drills there, and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look great. Looks like he is hobbling around and really kind of laboring to get through some of the drills. And you can check that out. Teron Davenport put that out on Twitter. I'm sure many others did as well, but it didn't look great from Will Levis yesterday in terms of his mobility. And he's had the foot that he's dealing with, and now the injury report says ankle. So I guess that's two different things. But it didn't look good with Will Levis yesterday.
No, he looked really ginger. That was a very effective video. It's just like, my goodness, he can't pivot on the thing. So I don't know. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, Tannehill out of the bullpen to beat the Colts. Is that what we're talking about
Maybe.
here? I mean, it's Wednesday. Got a little bit of time. I'm watching him move around in there. It's like I almost wonder if he should just get a day or two off. The thing is, the rookie needs every rep you can get if you're going to start an NFL game, and you just need all the work you can get. But that does not look great.
No, I mean we've talked about him not really using his legs all that much, not running around, and I said after the Carolina game, I still felt like there were a couple opportunities where he could have got out of the pocket or extended the play a little bit, and he didn't do it. And was that the foot injury? Was that the ankle that was popping up on him in the game there? I don't know, but now it makes a little bit more sense why he wasn't running around all that much in the game.
Yeah, and trying to remember when was the there was a clear. I think it was at Tampa Bay. Was it
yes,
not?
Tampa Bay.
It was a scramble at Tampa Bay. At least that's the first time I noticed it. And he actually had a good run, but then came up limping, and it seems like it's been a thing since then.
Had a play where he got taped up in the Jacksonville game. I want to say, was that after the first quarter, somewhere in that neighborhood?
It was the first half.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously he's been dealing with something for the last couple of weeks here. My question is this the same thing, or is this something new that's popped up? Because it looks from the video. Now, again, this is him. It's not like they're out there going completely full speed and people are chasing him, but He just looked like he was struggling a little bit yesterday with the video that TD put out there.
Yeah.
First meet of the day for
like
Rexrode.
me with my microphone. Yeah, so I guess we can just blame the offensive line. I mean, the thing is, that can happen. Anybody can go out and scramble and have a weird twist and whatever. But I'd say may as well blame the offensive line because the offensive line gets blamed for everything.
Well,
and for the most part, that's fair.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So we got Levis looking like he's a little bit banged up heading in this game. Traylon Burks at least back out on the field. And we'll see how that progresses this week. If he can get out there, can Traylon Burks, if he's healthy enough to play, can he get out there and can he be a factor immediately? Because, Karski's talked about this with us. We've discussed it. Like, it does feel like at times there's been a ramp-up period, for lack of a better term, that it feels like he needs when he gets out there. And it would be great if that didn't have to happen this time and he would get out there and look productive, because that's the other thing. Beyond the injuries, which you and I have talked about, I think the chief concern with Traylon Burks right now, when he's on the field, he's got to find a way to be more productive than he has been to this point. And it would be nice if that began immediately and there wasn't like a 3-week ramp-up period. It was like, oh, Traylon Burks made 5 catches in this game.
Yeah, get to the finale and, finally weaves them in.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, to me it's kind of like, hey, if he's up, then I think you would think would get a lot of snaps, right? I mean, this isn't like, if it's an ankle or something like that, then it's like, okay, well, let's limit the snaps. But this is basically, it's pass fail. It's you're in or you're out. And so now, you miss a little bit of time, and there's some maybe conditioning, that has to do with the conversation as well. But they certainly need what he can provide and has in very limited stretches provided. And he needs, I think he needs a good finish to this season to get some momentum going into the offseason. By the way, like, seriously, it took me this long from the last time that I made my to finally get to this. I mean, what's happening with my computer today? But it's a Q collar. So this is according to Easton Freeze. Applies gentle pressure to the back of the neck, increases blood volume in the brain, limiting how much it can move around in the skull.
Look, whatever it takes to get him to not be further at risk for more concussions, I'm cool with.
And that's innovative. Obviously, I have some experience as a high school football player's dad with like the helmet technology and like the safest stuff you can do and everything. But there's still, it's still limit. Like, if you get your head snapped back, which is what happened to Traylon Burks in that last play, your helmet does nothing for you, right? This is really interesting. The Q collar.
The Q collar. I've never heard of this before.
I haven't either. But he's wearing it. It's interesting because it also reminds me a little bit of the
net guard.
Yeah, the net guards in the NHL. So maybe that's going to be the thing. Everybody wearing a collar in all these sports.
615-737-1025. Our phone number. Off and running on Robby and Rexrode. Traylon Burks back on the practice field. Will Levis looking like he's a little banged up at Titans practice. We'll take your thoughts on all of that. More on the Titans coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecallstn.com. That's Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. I got some tickets to give away, a pair of tickets to see Brian Regan at Ryman Auditorium coming up on June 19th. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to see Brian Regan at Ryman Auditorium coming up on June 19th, 615-737-1025. So on the Levis front, we've talked about him hobbling around yesterday at practice. How cautious should the Titans be if there's doubts about his mobility heading into this game, even if he's going to try to tough it out and play, which – knowing him, he probably would try to do that. Should the Titans be a little bit more cautious and protect their young quarterback, or should you just let him play through it and see what he's got coming up on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, will he? Is he hurt enough that he would even get like a questionable designation? I really don't know. There was no indication of anything like that until like that video, but it just doesn't look good. So. It's like, what does this see? I mean, right now they have 7 losses. That's the interesting thing too. It's like if you could still make the case right now that like if you absolutely had to win a football game right now, you feel better because Tannehill now I think should be pretty healthy. I mean, I think he's had plenty of time now to actually heal. Who would you put out there? Would you put out Levis? You put out Tannehill?
I would put out Levis.
Okay, that's a pretty quick answer. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I would put out Levis.
Okay. I mean, I'd put out Levis because I'm trying to develop him and because I'm trying to find out about him and give him as many reps as possible. And I think it's close, but I think you can make a case that a healthy Tannehill compared to a little bit wobbly Levis would be a better bet to win a game.
Yeah, if Levis is wobbly, especially to the point where like he can't move, then yeah, I think that's definitely a different discussion there. Tannehill at this point I would assume is healthy, like he's fully ready to go. So that's the thing. I mean, and if you're Vrabel, you do have that luxury in your back pocket of a guy that started and won a lot of football games for you. So that's kind of where it's like if Levis is limited enough to where he can't really move around back there, and I know that Indy doesn't have like the world's greatest pass rush coming from the edge. And the Titans earlier in the year, they actually did a decent job protection-wise against Indy because of that. So maybe this is a good matchup where you feel like the quarterback's not going to be under constant duress like he's been at times this year. But even still, like if your quarterback can't really move around back there and operate that way, do you owe it to yourself as a franchise to make sure that he's protected as much as possible and maybe look at Tannehill for this game? I don't know. I mean, look, we may get through the end of the week here, and Levis's ankle is fine, and he's ready to play, and it's a non-issue on Sunday. I'm with you. It looked pretty bad in that video yesterday.
Yeah, and there's always the so Tannehill plays, maybe you're just not sure, and I think you do want to be careful. I mean, you don't want Levis to have to play on a bum ankle week after week. It's just going to get worse.
Right.
I mean, those things can last a long time if you just keep pounding on them. Then Tannehill comes in. Tannehill plays great. The Titans beat the Colts. So they're sitting at 7 wins. And if the Titans beat the Colts this weekend, even though I will not pay it much mind at all, they'll probably be like – they could be a game out of the wild card.
They could be.
They could be – I mean, certainly, I think right now they're 2 games out, right? At 4-7. So, then you get into the locker room, the team, the guys see Tannehill play great. I think everybody still likes and respects Tannehill. So it's like, okay, so then do you just go back to Levis if Tannehill played the best quarterback game you've had in a while, which is possible?
Rexrode's talking playoffs, baby.
Well,
get back in there.
Again, like I don't, again, like I just said, I pay it no mind. But in the locker room,
sure,
those guys absolutely are holding on to hope. Those guys are holding on to hope they're going to win out, and they're going to go 10-7.
I mean, in all seriousness, if you win this week, you are 5-7, and you have 2 games coming up with Houston that is in direct competition with you for one of those spots.
So you sweep them.
Yeah.
I mean, look.
It's easy as a player to talk yourself into it.
I mean, Jeff Simmons.
Us sitting here today talking about it's like, well, okay.
Right. I mean, it's right. I mean, anybody, I'm sure there's laughs on the text line, which is fine. I mean, Jeff Simmons, again, none of us are in this thing. Jeff Simmons, after the game Sunday, was great. It's amazing for him, like just mood and I mean he cares a lot about winning and losing. He is miserable when they lose. He's a totally different guy kind of when they win. But he was really talked a lot about Vrabel and stuff like that. But also, I mean, he actually at one point mentioned Jags in the division. It's like, what? Jags in the division?
Yeah.
So, but that's what those guys. To them, it's like every week win, and then they know they have 7 losses.
That one for a player might even be a stretch.
A little bit of a stretch.
It's a little bit of a stretch.
What is the Jags record right now?
They're 8-3.
Yeah. So basically, you're hoping
they've already beaten once.
You're hoping they do what you did last year, just completely bottom out. Yeah. But the wild card is, in theory, mathematically, still alive. So until that's if you had a week where Tannehill comes in, plays amazing, Levis is banged up, and some things work out around the league and he looks a little bit closer, do you then start to consider going back to him?
It is the AFC really interesting beyond the top 4. Like Baltimore, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Miami, they're all making the playoffs. Baltimore's 9-3, the rest of them are 8-3. When you get to the 5 seed, so Pittsburgh's 7-4, and they fired their offensive coordinator and then played one of their best games offensively immediately after that. And improved
right?
to 7-4. Cleveland's at 7-4, but their quarterback's out the rest of the year. So what are they? They have great defense, but what are they? Indy right now holds on to the last wild card spot at 6-5, and then you got Houston, Denver, also both at 6-5, and Buffalo 6-6. Like it's a really interesting race right now for that wild card spot.
I mean, Buffalo, my goodness. Like, I still have to believe Buffalo. I mean, the way at some point a team takes enough miserable heartbreakers and maybe it breaks a team, but they were absolutely controlling. I mean, I'm watching that game like that's 2 teams that could play in the Super Bowl.
Sure.
And then they might not make the playoffs.
Well, the problem for Buffalo is they're off this week, so no game for them this week.
So they have to stew on it.
They got to stew on it. And then what do you get as a reward? On the road at Arrowhead to Kansas City the week after, and then the Cowboys the week after that. I mean, their schedule right now is just brutal.
My goodness.
So, I mean, I agree with you. I think they're better. Look, I think Buffalo's better than Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's the 5 seed right now.
Absolutely, they're better than Pittsburgh.
But I think there's also a chance that these next 2 weeks they might be looking at 6-8 as a part of their record.
Incredible.
Maybe you get the Cowboys at home. I'm not saying it's impossible they go on the road and beat Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City is still good. They may go on and win the Super Bowl this year. Kansas City's not unbeatable based on the way their offense is played at times, but absolutely Buffalo could be 6-8 after the next 2 weeks, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. So, but you look at those other teams right ahead. I mean, look, you beat the Colts. The Colts are 6-6, and you're 5-7, and you split with them. And I mean, I'm not going to buy it, okay? But in the building, those players, I mean, you're going to hold on to the hope of making the tournament as long as you possibly can, and they would be technically in there, and then off to Miami you go.
I got a texter that says, could the video of Levis be purposely put out there to throw the other team off, and he's really not that hurt?
Yes, TD is an agent of the Titans. Yes, who's trying to?
Or I guess they're saying like, could Vrabel go up to Levis? Hey man, media's out here. Ham it up a little bit.
Yeah,
act like you're
really hurt.
The ankle's hurt. We'll throw the Colts off. Could be.
I love the conspiracy.
Look, it's gamesmanship in the NFL. I won't rule anything out.
Sure. That would be interesting. Pretend you're injured.
Like the first play, they run some quarterback draw and Levis is
right. Just
my gosh. He can run.
They run like 20 quarterback runs in the game. It's just nothing but like the Ravens offense from 2019, Yeah.
Just beautiful.
I think that's a legit video there. So, yeah, you don't want to you just don't want it to get worse. And look, you do have all these guys talk about, all they care about, and I believe it. week to week, what can you do to win a football game? So you got a pretty capable backup.
Rexrode's calling for Tannehill to
No,
start
I'm
on
not.
Sunday.
I'm just saying, like, why rule that out? I mean, it'd probably be easier if your game was on the road, right? Because then you don't have to worry about people booing that you're not starting Will Levis. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans to get to coming up next as they prepare for the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Until that moment, I guess, played the Colts the first time around. You imagine you prepared that way. How much did those studies maybe help you going into this one?
Good, yeah. It was nice to, for the first time, study a team and have that kind of come back to you and realize that, think about the things that worked and didn't work and, how we're going to, in turn, respond to this time around. So this is the interesting part of the year when you get to play those second divisional games and knowing that we talk about it's always going to be a street fight, that we're coming to play our best ball. We know each other as teams, so it just makes everything that much more important.
That was Will Levis yesterday. Looking ahead to the Colts coming up on Sunday. We've discussed Levis and maybe a little bit of an ankle injury that he's dealing with. I continue to be really impressed by him on the mental side of things. We've talked about that, but just he seems like for a rookie quarterback, like he really gets it. And it doesn't guarantee that he's the long-term answer at quarterback, but I've really liked what I've seen from him from the mental side of things as a rookie. And I feel like it probably is not talked about enough how hard that is for a rookie coming into the NFL, and I feel like he's handled that really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the field, operationally, it hasn't been perfect, but pretty good, especially for a rookie. I mean, especially with all the issue, even just the offensive line that has so many, 8 starting combinations or whatever.
Yep.
And you've got, Radens is piling up the false starts already, but Levis has been good there and very good talking about things, just explaining them. I think he gets it. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't guarantee that, that the performance will be what you want it to be, but he's going to.
He's capitulating well, matriculating well.
Yeah, that's the thing. He even corrected his grammar or his word usage, so some good self-awareness there. For people who didn't know, he was trying to say matriculating down the field. Didn't someone get mad and say matriculating down the field is a stupid thing too? But it was Hank Stram.
It's Hank Stram, man.
In like Super Bowl II or whatever. So we should all, it
go look up
became
Hank
a
Stram
thing.
videos. It's awesome.
Yeah, it became a cool thing. So it's a football term. It's a football word that turned
Just keep
into
matriculating that ball down the field, baby.
Yeah, come on. But capitulating.
Yeah.
That's actually very good. He must have read some Shakespeare along the way.
He must have. Got a text that says, I need the same defensive front against Indy that showed up against the Panthers. That's the question.
Well,
I mean, that's the bread and butter of the Titans team.
You'd love to have the same opposing offensive line, which actually, by the time they got those injuries, might have been worse than what the Titans have been throwing out there this year. So it helped a lot. They just flat out kicked their butts. They're a very bad offensive line. But I think Landry has gradually become a little bit more impactful, and Autry looked great.
He did.
So maybe they get some. And again, we saw Arden Key reemerge from the wilderness. After weeks.
I feel great about the fact that Autry looked as good as he did because we've seen him do that time and time again. And even earlier this year, Autry was playing really well. Like, we know what Simmons is. And I agree with you on Landry. Like, it feels like he's getting stronger. I need to see it again from Arden Key before I believe it. Because right now, the sample size on Arden Key I have is he looked great in one half against New Orleans against the left tackle that wasn't very good. And he looked great against Carolina against an entire offensive unit that was terrible.
Yeah.
And other than that, he's been pretty much invisible. So I need to see a little bit more from Arden Key before I believe that Sunday was like some revelation for him.
Oh, totally. Agree. But it's better to at least your last performance was really good. You made plays, and confidence and the mental side of this game is still the bigger part of it.
There is that. Chris on the text line says, Rexrode is calling for Tannehill and drinking the playoff Kool-Aid. That's what I heard. It's from Chris.
I know you're just trolling me, Chris, but please don't spread that. Please don't let that get to Twitter. I can't deal with it today.
Just ask Kuharski. So what do you think about Joe saying the Titans are going to get back into the wild card spot?
What are you talking about? Don't even get started on that.
I will say.
Sorry.
I will say, if they win Sunday and they get to 5-7 and you've won 2 games in a row, number one, we're going to be talking about why is this team so good at home and why are they so bad everywhere else other than Nissan Stadium. But we are going to take a look at the standings and be like, whoa, 2 games against the Texans. There's a chance.
Hey, I mean, I'm not opposed to, even if it's basically a mirage, football that appears to be meaningful or is mathematically meaningful. I didn't even think we'd have that. So
No, I didn't.
You know. And look, hey,
We're setting up for a nice Gardner Minshew 285-yard, 3-touchdown performance on Sunday.
Well, that may be. That may be for sure. I won't be shocked if that's the case. But it would be fun if there were stakes attached to 2 games between C.J. Stroud and Will Levis.
Absolutely.
That would be fun.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Jaden. Jaden, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning. So I have a take of the morning, and I'm going to give it to you guys and see what you think. So I think the Titans should build around Will Levis, and here's why. He showed that he can throw the deep ball. I mean, obviously he's a rookie, so he has some developing to do. But if I'm the GM going into this year's draft, to be honest with you, I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be there. So I think you got to go tackle. You got to build around. You got to build that offensive line so you can give Will Levis some protection. And if he's going to be your guy moving forward, I think that's the way to go, because Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud and he's going to be sought out after. And I just don't think he's going to be there. I don't think the Titans are going to be in a spot to be able to pick him. So if I'm the GM, I think you go tackle first round. And I just wanted to see what y'all think. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, Jaden. Appreciate it.
Thanks for making us talk about the draft, Jaden. Thank you.
It won't be the last time.
No more draft talk until early April. Can we all agree? No.
Early April.
No, we can't all agree on that. I'd say all college hoops from now until then. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a
Hey, I
crazy
opened the show with college hoops.
Yeah, well, with your ridiculous take on the Vols. I don't think that
It's a ridiculous
such a
take to
hater.
call the Vols overrated.
well, you said they stink. They don't stink.
I said they sucked in the grid.
Oh, they suck.
I didn't say that
That's
on the
even
air.
worse than stink.
I did.
Yeah. God.
Well, I put it in there after the first half
Yes,
last night when
well,
they were down
I
by
know.
35.
No, I saw it in the grid, and then as they whittled a 20-some point deficit down to 7 with like 8 minutes left, I'm like, oh, Robby, you might have to change your wording. But
I didn't.
they lost. Yeah, you didn't change it. Anyway, Jaden, yeah, I don't think it's like a crazy idea to think that you should build around the quarterback you just selected high in the draft. And I'm with you. Interestingly, now that it's a day later, so Dane Brugler came out with Mock Draft 1.0.
He did. At
which
theathletic.com.
people went nuts about it, as they always do, and that's the thing, man. I mean, it's people want to read the freaking mock drafts.
They do.
So he had 9 offensive tackles
In the first round.
going in the first round, which would be a record, and the Titans not taking one of them. But it's interesting because after you get, especially the 2 big guys, Olu and Alt, the Penn State Notre Dame guys, those are, I mean, he's got them, I think, both top 5.
Yep.
After you get from them, a lot of those tackles are right tackles. So can you get to one of those guys? Those guys are seen as, yes, that's foundational 10-year pillar of your offense, left tackle. And if a lot of teams need that. I mean, just look at the mock draft alone. Like, a lot of teams are desperate for better offensive line play. There is a massive shortage of competent offensive linemen in the NFL, and the Tennessee Titans are a great example of that.
Well, let me just go ahead and throw it out there. I know we're diving deep into the draft.
Here we
Love
go.
it. They need a left tackle in this. If they're going to draft somebody that high, he
Right.
needs to be a left tackle.
Right.
Not a right tackle. A left tackle is what they need.
Yeah, so right now they're sitting at 10th, and if Dane is right, and there's a lot of things but it's not just Dane here on these 2 guys, then you're not going to be able to get those guys.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to get one of those 2 guys unless you move up or unless you lose some games.
There is that. Hey, Malik Neighbors.
So what are you rooting for this Sunday, Titans fans?
Get you Malik Neighbors?
Malik Neighbors, he's
Pretty good.
I mean, I'm seeing Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels. By the way, Caroline made a great case for Jaden Daniels, but did she also say, like, what's around him isn't good sort of thing? Did she insinuate that somewhere along the way? Because his top 2 receivers are both top 20 picks per Dane Brugler.
There's that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
he doesn't have a good defense around him.
Maybe that's what she meant. I
I'll
don't
give
know.
you that.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. Believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is that time of the week, time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in sports.
All right, so this has been bothering me before I do. So on that intro, Nick, the last thing where someone's like, what the heck is that? Okay.
The okay, let's go?
Yeah, what is that?
It's I don't really know how to explain it in 30 seconds, but it's very popular on social media. It's like this kid that set up this big model. I don't even know what it is. Like
it's a model train.
Model train / model village. And he's like got his own DJ set up.
Yeah, he's sitting there with his dad.
And he just goes, okay, let's go. Then there's DJ around it. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, that's
you just have
it.
to see it.
There's some crap on TikTok?
Yeah,
or
it's on TikTok.
Snapchat or some crap that I don't
It's
know?
a TikTok thing.
It's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry I asked.
Boomer.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So I guess I'm just going to use this forum as a way to talk college basketball. It's the only way I can get it on the show. So, I mean, I have my rant, too. Maybe I have to think of a college hoops rant, too, today. But my best thing this week, and they lost last night, but I think people need to start paying attention to Shea Ralph's Vanderbilt Commodores. It's her third season, program that, has required some work. 7-0 going into last night. They go into number 5 NC State. They lose 70-62. Shot terribly. Missed layups. Like, it was a very frustrating game. But NC State is a legit. Like, they got a couple players. I mean, that's certainly a Final Four contending team. At home, full crowd. It's Jimmy V week, and so, I mean, it's like a really tough atmosphere. One of the toughest atmospheres and best teams they will see all year. And they were toe-to-toe. And I was very impressed. That is a team that I will tell you, because I was wondering, 7-0, but, the schedule's been kind of soft. Jordan Cambridge has gone through incredible injuries, but she now has a three-point shot to go with. She's still one of the best defensive guards, I think, in college basketball. And I was very curious, like, is this going to be okay? I think go out and get beat by 25. And it's like, okay, I mean, they're better, but are they really a team that can make the NCAA tournament? I'm here to tell you today, this is a team that has a chance to make the NCAA tournament. Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to get some big wins in the SEC, but that is a sliver of right now in the sports landscape at Vanderbilt of very much positivity. And my worst thing in sports is everything else right now going on with Vanderbilt, primarily, football and men's basketball.
Not good.
And we're going to get into like the Clark Lee changes later, but he demotes defensive coordinator Nick Howell, and he is going to be the DC. And I never think that the coach adding like play calling, whether it's offense or defense, is usually a good idea. I'm sure people can come up with examples for me where like it ended up making things better. And then he fired offensive coordinator Joey Lynch. So, they ended the season in rough shape. We've talked about A.J. Swan getting in the portal. A lot of guys getting in the portal. And then men's basketball, Lee Dort facing some serious charges. We'll see how that plays out. He's not with the team. They got beat last night at home. And look, they still haven't played with all their players this year. So there's a handy excuse available, but it's just been bad. I mean, they've played horrible team defense, and it's a pretty consistent thing with Jerry Stackhouse. He just can't get a team to play as well as you need to play early in the season to avoid the big hole that then you have to dig out of for the rest of the season. And here we are again. They really needed that game last night against Boston College, and it's just not looking good for that program right now.
They got beat by 18 points at home by Boston College last night.
Yeah.
18.
This isn't like Jared Dudley's Boston College.
Exactly.
So, yeah, looking not great over there.
Nick Keyser, your best and worst things in sports for this week.
I would say the best thing in this town is the Predators' win streak right now. Arguably the most successful team we've had in a while, just seeing what they've been able to do. The Titans obviously have had their struggles. So the Preds is by far the best thing going for pro sports in town right now. Also, Pete's 2000th game, just to kind of make that crazy. So Preds looking really well. The worst thing in sports, Corey Perry. What in the world? Like, I would love to know what is going on, because this is not anything to do with the players. The players have no idea, even though I kind of call BS on that. I think it's intriguing that Corey Perry's contract gets terminated and there's nothing to be said about it. And there are all the nasty rumors. Kyle Davidson said no way in hell that that's true. So time will tell, but it is very strange, and I think it is very telling of what his character very well may be.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens there. I mean, it's kind of weird right now around Corey Perry, but Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff yesterday came out and basically said there was an incident, and it was kind of alcohol infused, and there was an incident between him and a team employee. That's what happened. I don't know any details beyond that, but apparently alcohol infused incident between him and a team employee, and we'll see what that means moving forward here. But very weird situation with Corey Perry.
So, and I think to tack on to the worst, I hope people that needs to be broadcast, because the rumor is stupid and it's obviously not true, and yet people are still going with that because the internet.
Exactly. My best thing in sports, building on the Preds, specifically Philip Forsberg. Guy's on an absolute tear right now. We're going to talk to Dan Highnote about him coming up a little bit later at 7:15. But he's playing, in my opinion, the best hockey of his career, and he is on pace for over 100 points right now, and it's been fun to watch. It's fun to watch him playing at this level. I've always, we talked about him before. We've always kind of thought that he had elite traits about him, and he's never really put together elite play consistently. And I'm not willing to say that he's there yet, but you're 20-something games in, 21 games in now, feel good about the way that he's played to this point. So Philip Forsberg, my best thing in sports. My worst thing in sports, and I've seen this especially yesterday when it was announced that Rodgers his practice window was elevated, which is insane. Just the fact that he's gotten back this quick. But I fully realize, trust me, Aaron Rodgers is a very polarizing individual and says some things every now and then that are pretty stupid and can be unlikable. All those things I get and are true. But this idea out there that he didn't actually tear his Achilles is one of the dumbest things I think I've ever seen. Not to get too graphic on you guys, but there's literally a video that you can watch in high definition of his Achilles tendon popping. You can see it. He tore his Achilles. Now, how he's gotten back this quick, I have no idea. It's incredible, and I still think it's kind of stupid that he's about to try to come back as quickly as he is on a 4-7 team that's going nowhere, but we'll wait and see what happens on that front. But these conspiracy theories, some of which are in the NFL media, by the way, that he didn't tear his Achilles is one of the dumbest things I think I've ever seen. There's literally a video where you can see it happening.
Yeah. How's it compared to DeMar Hamlin? It wasn't really DeMar Hamlin in the suite. I mean,
it's amazing.
We got some geniuses out here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's guys, the broadcast, you can see in slow motion his Achilles tendon popping out of place. It's what more do you guys need to see?
Tell me, explain to me what the reasoning would be for that.
Because he's back so quick. They think
no, all right, but I mean the reasoning to fake it. You know
I don't know.
I mean, what? I mean, what?
I just want to sit out for the whole year, waste a year.
I twisted my ankle, but that offensive line's so bad, I'm gonna fake an Achilles. Okay,
it's just amazing.
And then I'm gonna come back for the same offensive line when we suck and there's no reason to come back. Okay.
Mike on the text line says, worst in sports is the effort by Vandy men's hoops last night. Team has zero chemistry. I'm afraid it only gets worse as you move into SEC play. Stack can't survive this year, can he? This is from Mike on the text line. Gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think year 5, if they don't make the NCAA tournament, I think that you have to really look at that. And at this point, I don't think they're going to get close to that. I mean, I still like Ezra Manjon a lot. I do. And Tyron Lawrence a lot, but doesn't look good.
Real quickly, Jacob says, best thing, Lou Holtz and Ryan Day. That lives on. Lou Holtz is having some fun.
Oh, Lou Holtz talking some trash?
Lou Holtz was talking some more trash after Ryan Day in Columbus.
What'd he say?
And, he was like, 3 in a row losing to that team. That had to have been a long, lonely night for Ryan Day. It's like, geez, Lou Holtz he hates Ryan Day.
And this wasn't like Pat McAfee's.
No, this was real Lou Holtz.
Little crony?
Yeah.
It was actually
This
Lou
is real
Holtz
Lou
talking
Holtz.
trash?
Yeah.
I got to get the audio of this.
It's pretty funny. 615-737-1025. Preds back in action tonight, going for win number 7 in a row. John Hines making his return to Bridgestone Arena tonight. We'll get into all that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll have Charles Robinson coming up from 8 to 8:30 talking all things NFL. Preds assistant coach Dan Hinote at 7:15. The Nashville Predators going for win number 7 in a row tonight. They currently have the longest winning streak in the NHL at 6 games, and John Hynes, former Preds coach, will make his return to Nashville tonight as head coach of the Minnesota Wild. So you have an opportunity to extend a winning streak to 7, and John Hynes with an opportunity, Joe, to come in here tonight and ruin the party for the Nashville Predators. I've heard from a lot of Predators fans, and I've heard from our good friend Jared Stillman a lot the last couple of days. A lot of people really wanting the Predators to win this game tonight. Not very much an optimist of the John Hynes coming in and ruining the party type of thing.
Yeah. Also some people on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com who I guess don't want or can't believe there would be a video tribute. As you've pointed out, let's see. Let's go through some of the video tributes the Preds have done.
Well, they've done one for Matt Irwin.
Forgot he existed.
They did, I think, a combo one this year with Matt Benning and Luke Cunnin.
Okay.
If I thought about it hard enough, I could think of more.
All
that to say, there's going to be a video for John Hynes tonight.
I
would prepare yourself for it.
If you've bought as many as 4 beers at a Preds game, you may get a tribute video. If you move out of town and then come back in, just randomly hey, Rick from St. Louis.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. They will absolutely do a video tribute for John Hynes. What will be the reaction? I bet you the reaction is polite golf clapping with 5 people at different parts of the arena throwing out boo out.
I think you'll hear some boos.
And then a little bit of boo, like Jared.
Yeah.
That's a great revelation that he gave, that he was at the Titans game and he booed. Boo! And then he's like, Vrabel, why'd you put Malik in? Maybe Jared will be somewhere in that arena booing lustily as John Hynes' tribute video plays, but he'll get one. And he should get – he wasn't a great coach. Right now he is the third of 3 coaches in the history of the Preds, right? He's the third best, and Andrew Burnett started out pretty well. It's early. He may end up being the 4th of 4. He may end up being last place. Well, probably not though, right? 50 years from now, if there's still a planet and sports and stuff like that,
they will eventually have a worse
coach than John Hynes, right?
Eventually they will have a worse coach than John Hynes.
He wasn't horrific. It's overstated.
Far be it from me to tell the fan what to do. You can do what you want. My advice is simply just, all right, clap for about 30 seconds or stand up and wave and then move on. John Hynes, I would imagine, is going to take one look at the screen, all right, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, don't moon him.
Yeah. Just leave it alone. It's over at this point.
For all I know, Kaharski could be in the crowd with his phone.
But here's the other thing. If you think he's that bad of a coach, then you should say, well, this is great news. He's now the head coach of a division rival in Minnesota, right? If you think he's not good.
That's right.
This should be good news for you.
Misery.
If you're a Predators fan.
That's right. Misery continuing for the Wild.
Exactly. So
you should be happy.
I will say, if they come in there tonight and they just kick the Predators' butt, it's going to be a lot of – even though, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not a big deal because, the winning streak's going to have to come to an end at some point. But there will be a lot of upset Preds fans tonight if John Hynes is the one to end the winning streak.
Will there be anybody saying, we need Hynes back?
I don't think so.
I don't think that'll be it. Yeah.
I don't think so.
But it is. The stakes, from the fan perspective, elevate a little bit.
They do.
And first of all, you're the hottest team in the NHL, so there's already a lot of interest and excitement around that. And then you add in this. Does John Hynes coming in have any sort of – is there any sort of concern about John Hynes coming in, all the attention about that, and that having any sort of impact on the players?
Hey.
They try too hard, you grip the stick a little too tightly?
Well, one thing that I'm – if I'm a Predators fan, I would be concerned about, especially as they move into this weekend. They've played a lot of games lately. They've had barely any time for practice. They've played a lot of games, and they're entering into a stretch tonight where they play tonight. They play Saturday at home against New York, and then Sunday on the road against Buffalo. So you're heading into a 3-game and 4-day stretch tonight when you've already played a ton of hockey lately. I do, and that's what I go back to. We talked about 11 forward, 7D, it's worked out okay because they've won the games. But when you play 11 forwards, guys like Forsberg and O'Reilly, I mean, you're playing a lot because you're double shifting a lot of guys. So does that catch up to them at some point? And then, I mean, I would assume it's Saros tonight, probably Saros Saturday, and then Lincoln and Sunday. But I mean, they're running into a stretch now where they've played a lot of hockey lately.
And the good thing is Lincoln is playing well.
He is.
So to use him a little bit more, that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, it's and the Rangers, I mean, they're
very good.
That's a very, very good team. In fact, right now, that is the best team in the NHL.
Yep.
Just beat the Red Wings with a nice Jimmy Vesey goal. So, how about that?
Matt on the text line says, did he get one when he coached here? Why would you give him one when he's coaching the opposing team? Makes no sense. Well, you don't give tribute videos while somebody's still here. John, when you leave us in the future, we wish you the best success possible.
Let's remember the times as they're going on.
That is an interesting idea, though. Just go ahead and give a tribute video to Philip Forsberg.
Yeah.
Philip, we appreciate all you've done to this point.
I had the time of my life. He's still here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, interesting. We got some interesting stuff. Yeah, I'd like to real quick just take a little bit of an issue with Robert here.
Okay.
Says, surprised y'all still have a listening audience as much as y'all call them stupid, LOL. About your Aaron Rodgers thing. First of all, were you telling our listeners stupid?
No. I was directing most of my rant at the NFL media.
Yeah. I mean,
Greg Doyle specifically has written a piece where he doesn't believe that Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, which is the most asinine thing I think I've read.
Yeah. I mean, Greg Doyle works at I haven't read the column, but it is asinine. I mean, like you said, like you can see it. I mean, I've seen just on Twitter in general, and I haven't really stopped to pay attention sometimes who's saying it, but I've seen a lot of this can't be real. Well, okay. Again, it reminds me of DeMar Hamlin. Like, I mean, everybody's out looking for conspiracy. Sometimes they actually exist.
Sometimes.
And sometimes, it's the video evidence right there for you. So no one's calling our listening audience stupid. Although, Robert, your text was stupid. Doesn't mean you're stupid, but your text was.
I'm just going down the rabbit hole of tribute videos while they're still playing. That would be awesome. I think it's what we need to switch to. We need a Roman Yossi tribute video tonight.
If they had a good game last game.
Give it to them.
Before the game. Look at your goal from last game, Kiefer Sherwood.
That's really a great thought. I like it.
Real-time tribute videos.
In general, and this is no disrespect to John Hines or Matt Irwin or anybody, but in general, I am all for fewer tribute videos. Let's save the tribute videos for like Matthias Ekholm and Ryan Johansson and guys that had big impacts here.
I mean, Matt Irwin got one?
Yeah.
You said Wayne Simmons got one?
I need to double check, but I feel like I've seen a Wayne Simmons tribute video, but I need to go back and double check that. But I know that Matt Benning and Luke Conant got a tribute video.
Wayne Simmons played 11 shifts with the Preds, and none of them were good. What would the tribute? Would it be like, here's some highlights from you with the Flyers. Here's some Flyers goals you scored.
It might have been just every now and then they've done the, hey, welcome back Wayne Simmons or whoever. It may have been one of those. I need to go back and double check.
Okay.
But I know that Matt Benning and Luke Conant got
Benning, one. Yeah, what? Yeah, please stop. It's kind of like sorry, Preds, but the banners, the tributes, make them more quality by making them a little less frequent, right? Make them count a little bit more.
And put glorious domination with it when you do it.
Yeah.
I'm all for
Actually, if you get rid of glorious domination, then you can tribute video every single person who's ever worked at the arena, as far as I'm concerned.
Coming up next, speaking of the Preds, we'll be joined by Preds assistant coach Dan Highnote. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Join us tomorrow on Robby and Rexrode, live from the grand opening of a new Dunkin' in Franklin at 1441 New Highway 96 West. 102.5 The Game will be on site from 6 to 9 a.m. Stop by and have your chance to win lots of great prizes. Looking forward to being out there tomorrow morning at the grand opening of a new Dunkin' in Franklin at 1441 New Highway 96 West. We are scheduled to be joined by Predators assistant coach Dan Highnote here in just a few minutes. We'll look forward to that conversation with him coming up. Preds going for win number 7 in a row tonight. Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Gus Nyquist, by the way, on a 9-game point streak right now. So didn't have that one heading into the year, but he is on a 9-game point streak at the moment. We talked about some of the reasons for their success yesterday, and a lot of the conversation that I've seen not only here locally, but I had some people that I work with at the NHL texting me about it yesterday of like, we think these guys are for real. Like, are they a team that can hang around and compete for a playoff spot all year? And I don't know that the answer to that is yes, but there are a lot of encouraging signs that we talked about yesterday in terms of the chances they're generating, the offense that they're generating. Power play's been pretty good as of late with Andrew Burnett in charge of that. And now your goaltending's starting to come back around to what you expect from UC Saros. So there are a lot of things about their game that are going really well right now, beyond the obvious of just the 6-game winning streak, that maybe you can sustain this. Now that you got Minnesota tonight, and look, say what you will about John Hines, but we've seen this in the league before, Joe. There's something about it. When you fire your coach, a lot of times there's an immediate kick in the pants to everybody else around you.
Yep.
And Minnesota fired their coach. They've been playing terrible. And they came out, and they looked really good the other night against St. Louis. And it was funny, Michael Russo in The Athletic caught up with Dean Evison, former head coach of the Wild, and kind of was talking to him about the process of how he got fired and all those things. And Evison in the article was like, yeah, I watched their game the other night. They looked great after they fired me. It was kind of funny to watch. So there is something about this league where when you fire the coach – a lot of times you'll see that team kind of get a kick in the pants in the immediate aftermath of that. It may not lead to long-term success, although there are examples where teams have fired their coach midseason and won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, sometimes that gets people woken up.
Yeah, it is interesting because, like, take the NFL, in-season firing, we think the Panthers about to rip off some wins? I don't think so.
Did not go well for Jeff Saturday last year either, although I think they did win their first game.
Yeah, they had a little, I guess, maybe a little bit of a bump, maybe. But, ultimately, it didn't do anything. I mean, the thing about the Wild is that this is a team that most people pick to get to the playoffs and should be better than they have been. So it's a team that has some actual potential to be good, unlike, say, Carolina. But it is weird how that works in the NHL. I'm trying to think of, like baseball, basketball, in-season firings. I'm sure there are examples of managerial changes where, but it does. You
don't see it as much as you do in hockey. For whatever reason, hockey, they fire coaches all the time. In the sport.
They love firing their coaches.
Yeah.
And doing tribute videos for them after they fire them.
There's that too. But I mean, Pittsburgh won their cup in 2009. I think Bilesma took over midseason for them that year. Mike Sullivan took over midseason when they won their first cup in 2016. And then you mean the St. Louis example. I mean, there's 3 examples right there in the last 20 years of teams firing their coach midseason and winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Not saying that's happening with Minnesota, but just for whatever reason in this league, firing coaches midseason happens a lot.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question of why. I'd like that answered. Maybe someone has explored it and I just haven't read it, but obviously in some cases, like you're changing system. I mean, the examples, like the Pittsburgh example, right? That's a loaded team at the time with like Crosby still in his prime, so you knew you had the goods to do it.
Yeah. Ricky brings up an interesting example in the NFL. Now, this I think is more to do with the previous coach's total incompetence, but the Raiders playing better after they fired Josh McDaniels this year. It may have more to do with Josh McDaniels just being an absolute disaster with some of the stuff coming out of there. But They are playing better.
Maybe they are playing better. I mean, I think Pierce maybe has a shot to coach his way into the job. You don't see that, and that's the thing too. Like with the NHL, well, that's where it's very different, right? In the NFL, you don't ever say, okay, and now here's our full-time next coach right now. Here you go.
Right.
In the NHL, where it's just like you got the recyclable coaches just sitting there ready to be tapped. It's like, okay, you're in. I mean, it's like no one thinks John Hines is just the coach for the rest of this year. He's their coach.
He's
until he's
deal.
not their coach.
I mean,
He's got a multi-year deal.
Yeah. And Peter Laviolette got fired one day, and 15 hours later, John Hines had a multi-year deal here in Nashville. That's how it works.
Yeah. They started the search, and boy, that search go fast.
It did.
Yeah, so that is one difference, I guess, is like this is the new regime, whereas in the NFL – you can't – there's just too much schematic – I mean, there's too much of an overhaul required to be able to do that, so you just go interim. So you're basically doing the same stuff. In the NHL, you may be doing very different stuff, and it just may be, I guess, I don't know, refreshing, other than like the voice in the room that we always talk about. Maybe just playing a different style, you're been stagnant and you embrace it. So maybe the Wild are like, yes, I want to be hard to play against John Hines hockey.
Oh, that's what makes – like I think – it's been interesting to watch Brunette to this point because I do think, like, systems-wise, the Predators are starting to figure out the way that he wants them to play. But I do think his style is pretty interesting just in terms of being a player and not just – like there are a lot of coaches that are former players. There are not very many coaches that are former players that have played over 1,000 games and have put up the type of career – the Andrew Burnett. Not that Andrew Burnett was like, Wayne Gretzky or anything like that, but you just don't see coaches that have his level of success in the NHL coach a lot. And it has been interesting to see kind of his demeanor in there because it's been very direct. Like it's, even when they're winning game, like the other day, they won the game. He's like, well, now we finally got into one game over 500. We'll see if we can get going now. Like it's he's been waiting for it to crank up, and he's not, even in the midst of a 6-game winning streak, he's not willing to be like, yeah, we, figured things out and things are smooth sailing now. It's like, well, now we're finally back at ground zero. Let's see where we can go from here. It's been interesting to watch his approach.
He's got some great, press conference comments. I mean, it's all due respect to John Hines, who I like. It's definitely an upgrade in the press conference quotability realm, right? Yeah, I mean, not always, but like there are some. I think a little more explanation of things, maybe.
The way he thinks the game is really interesting.
Hines would have some very good, at times, explanation of stuff too. So, but I'd say it's a little bit of an upgrade. So, are you saying that Brunette is sort of like a comparison, a comp to Vrabel in terms of
probably not as high level,
as
Vrabel,
but a little bit more.
Yeah,
that's true because basically the star players in this league go front office.
Yeah, for the most part. Like, Gretzky coached the Coyotes for a minute.
That's like Magic tried to coach too. And it's like, great players can't coach.
But for the most part, like, there's not a ton of great players in the NHL. They get in, like, Yzerman is in front office.
Right.
They go that route.
Sakic,
front office. Yeah. So, and again, not that Andrew Burnett is Steve Yzerman or Joe Sakic, but just saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that.
So I think the way that he thinks the game, we hear people talk about that all the time, like the way he thinks the game is just a little bit different. And I think that's been like I do wonder, and Jared brought this up yesterday, like Forsberg. Obviously, he's a good player. Obviously, he's got a ton of ability, and we've seen him make plays in this league that are really elite. But it feels like he's putting it together right now at a level which he hasn't done before, which credit to him for that for sure. But how much credit should Andrew Burnett and his system get for that too? Like, I don't know, but it's the early returns on whatever Burnett's doing with Forsberg are very, very good.
That's a fair point. And of course, when Hines was here, there was a lot of, and I think in a lot of cases overblown system holding people back.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, you're gonna you emphasize something or you want a little more here, you're gonna take away from something else. I mean, that's what it is. It's kind of a shell game in terms of what you're emphasizing. It does seem like Brunette, and we've had this discussion on the show. Well, we've had it actually with High Note on the show about how he sees players, even right,
Yep.
like what he can see in a player that maybe some people can't see. So you hope that of course translates also now moving forward to younger players and getting the most out of them.
The Chase and Big Joe Show will be live from the NASCAR Awards today at the Music City Center, brought to you by Green Trees Company Dispensary, providing high-quality legal THC products. Learn more at greentreescompany.com. Coming up next, we'll get into a little Vanderbilt football, some coaching changes being made. What does this mean for the future of the Vanderbilt football program and for Clark Lee specifically? We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecallstn.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. Charles Robinson from 8 to 8:30 talking all things NFL. Joe, some changes made to the Vanderbilt coaching staff. We talked the other day about the firing of the strength and conditioning coach. Now, offensive coordinator Joey Lynch has been let go by Clark Lee in the Vanderbilt football program, and defensive coordinator Nick Howell has been essentially demoted. He's remaining on the staff, but he'll be a coach in the secondary, and Clark Lee is taking over play calling duties, defensive coordinator responsibilities for Vanderbilt moving forward. So the OC out at Vanderbilt football, and Clark Lee stepping in as defensive coordinator. What do you think of that? What do you think of the idea, number one, look, firing the OC, not really that much of a surprise. When you're 2-10 and the season went the way that it went for that group, I figured the coordinators could probably be in trouble based on what we saw there, so I'm not surprised by that. It is intriguing, the idea of Clark Lee taking over as DC. Obviously, he was defensive coordinator for Notre Dame before he got hired to be the head coach here at Vanderbilt. You brought it up earlier. I mean, there's a lot of examples where that doesn't go very well when you make that decision deep into your coaching tenure, but what do you make of that decision by Clark Lee to step into that responsibility?
Yeah, and I'm sure if somebody has an example of it working out great, let me know. I'm sure there are examples of it being a good decision. I just can't think of any. Usually I think a lot of times a decision like this is basically a decision out of necessity, losing, maybe even desperation.
Desperation was probably the term
desperation
I was
might
gonna
be
use.
it often applied to a move like that. And obviously with Nick Howell, maybe who knows? I mean, he may look to move on too after this. I don't know. I think Vanderbilt fans who have been agonizing with this team each week Vanderbilt fans I know seem to not like the coordinators, but that's typical, right? If a team's losing, especially if it's like you're still pretty early in a coaching tenure, you look at the coordinators, and I'm not saying you can't upgrade there, but I think that there's some limitations on both sides of the ball weekly in the SEC that just it can make any coordinator look bad. Also, this team was way below expectations and didn't play well against bad teams either. So it's like there are coaches who are play calling coaches, both sides of the ball, that it's effective. So maybe it will be more effective. Josh Heupel has been a play calling head coach. We know in the NFL there's several play calling head coaches offensively. I'm trying to think, are there any defensive play calling head coaches? That used to be a little more frequent, I would say, than it is now. I don't know if no one comes to mind.
No one comes immediately to mind.
Again, I'm uninformed, so people in text line do my job for me. But it's interesting because I thought maybe there'd be a little bit. I thought maybe they'd hold out till signing day. I think it's frankly it's more honorable to do it this way and to move on. And Clark Lee has said he's going to start a national search for an OC. I'll say this: Clark Lee, regardless of calling defensive, being the DC, I don't know how that. What you worry about is how does that impact your big picture head coaching,
right?
But I would, if I were him, I think he should be very open to different schemes with the new OC, and just try to find someone who's obviously really good. One of the keys of trying to find a coordinator, even like maybe it's a position coach who gets a chance to be a coordinator. Was this coach basically on scholarship with just tremendous talent, and there's no real, the coaching itself was not a part of the success? Or has this coach demonstrated an ability to do more with less? Because you have to do more with less at Vanderbilt. But also, I would say creativity and even a totally different scheme should be embraced here as a possibility. Because you got to do more to bridge the gap, and the gap is going to be there next year. It's a huge gap almost every Saturday. Well, not almost, every Saturday in the SEC.
Well, and then we've talked about the departures in the transfer portal with A.J. Swan and Ken Seals leaving at the quarterback position. Patrick Smith, running back, entering the transfer portal yesterday. So some losses continue to come for Vanderbilt that way.
And he's been passed by Cedric Alexander.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so it's not necessarily surprising there, but it bears repeating. Like, are there going to be more Vanderbilt players that decide to enter the portal? and we see this sometimes even when the fan base is totally out on a coordinator or a coach or a position coach, whatever it is. I mean, sometimes those guys have great relationships with some of their players, and when they're fired, sometimes you see players move on after that. So is that going to happen now in the aftermath of this with Vanderbilt? I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, like I said the other day, the young receivers, Sherrill and Humphreys in particular. Alexander. Some of the young Gunnar Hansen. C.J. Taylor, and there are some good young players on this team, and even older players who can look elsewhere, and that's where, Vanderbilt has to devote some of the collective money to keeping some of those guys, and you may get outbid, but it's like I think one of the biggest benefits Vanderbilt has is you sure you don't want to stay here and have a Vanderbilt degree. That should help you if you can be at least somewhat competitive with the money with some of these players who can get paid to go elsewhere. And then you also have to have a chunk of that money set aside to go get a quarterback.
I think you and I probably disagree a little bit on the timeline here that Clark Lee is looking at. I think one thing that we could probably both agree on, this offseason heading into next season when they finally get on the field, is going to shape the way this thing goes for him. And it's so massive. Like he's got whatever coordinator hire he makes for offensive coordinator, his decision to take over as DC, like it's got to work, because if it doesn't work, then I think he's out of time at that point. And we've talked about the schedule next year. Like the schedule for Vanderbilt next year is going to make things really difficult. I know, we play paper schedule all the time, and rarely does it play out the exact same way that we think it will on paper. But paper schedule next year is not very good for Vanderbilt. They got a whole lot of tough games next season. So this next hire that he makes as offensive coordinator is gigantic for his future and his tenure at Vanderbilt.
No doubt. It's the coordinator, retaining players, finding a quarterback, holding on to recruits. They've had some decommitments. What does it look like on signing day? Again, the recruiting has been good. For Vanderbilt, it's been very good, but I thought we'd see a little bit more of that evidence on the field this year. We didn't see enough of it. We saw some. There were some good young players, but you got to have more of that. And then how much of the recruiting class you can hold on to? College football, negativity starts and it snowballs, and it is hard to overcome. It just is. Now this is a different place. It's just hard in general to get anything going at Vanderbilt, and the James Franklin 3-year, I just call it a 3-year magic trick. I think as we get further from that becomes a little bit less of a, this is what you should be doing. I don't know how the heck he pulled that off. He is he does some things extremely well in terms of recruiting and selling a program out the pub, right? He did a heck of a job.
We've not seen anything close to it since then.
Yeah, but I just think it's just hard. It's going to be harder. The last 70 years, that was a blip on the radar.
It was a blip on the radar, and I've said this before, and it's not been a very popular comment from Vanderbilt fans, but I think it's the truth. James Franklin did a great job here. He sold the program and was intentional about selling the program more than any coach I've ever seen before at that school. And at the same time, Florida's down a little bit. Georgia was down a little bit. Tennessee was down hard. And
sure.
It was, all of those things factored into how Vanderbilt, how he was able to pull that off.
I don't think, James, same guy, give him a 3-year stint at Vanderbilt. Yeah, I don't think he comes close to 24-15. That'd just be my guess. And another thing about that is, Bobby Johnson overall didn't have a successful. He had a lot of time to build it, and he actually did build a pretty solid program. James Franklin inherited some pretty good players.
He did.
So you got to keep that in mind too.
A lot of people loving the idea of Vanderbilt running the option or the triple option on the text line.
Yeah, I've heard that for many years, and I think something like that, or like what Coastal Carolina does, which is a little bit more of a modern pass-oriented type of offense like that. I think some kind of like the Bryles offense. I think something like that. But the problem is, and this is where it's going to be interesting with Clark Lee. Clark Lee's a defensive guy. Defensive guys they like an offense that can run the ball, can be physical. I get it. Like, I get the lure of playing physical football. It's just so hard to play physical football straight up in this league at Vanderbilt. So I embrace that idea, something more creative that can sort of level the playing field a little bit.
Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Teddy's Tavern this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for our NFL pregame show. They'll break down the Titans' Week 13 matchup against the Colts and give you the latest updates before the game. Our NFL pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and the Beast Unleashed. Coming up next, it is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning at 7:45. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
The doctor said I could watch practice from the press box today, so I'm fortunate I get to do that.
Will you wear a helmet in the future?
I probably will, yeah, you know. Well, when I came out of a ditch, there was a lady there that had flagged down a car, and the guy that was in the passenger seat said, "Get in, we'll just take you right to the hospital instead of waiting." And so I got in the car, and they headed towards Fayetteville.
Thank goodness there was a lady there.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. I hadn't heard that one in a while. That one brings back some memories. Shout out to Bobby Petrino, now the new offensive coordinator at Arkansas. Coming back home, Joe.
What does Bobby Petrino have on people?
I don't know.
Like, does he, like, you know, it's a total cliche. Like, oh, he must have, you know, damning pictures of this person or that. Like, explain to me anything about this. I mean, I understand college football. Like, if you got someone who is can help you win,
yeah,
you can throw all the morality and flush it down the toilet. I get that. But, I mean, Bob Petrino, what did he do for Jimbo?
Nothing.
For anybody who doesn't know, by the way, I guess I should probably back up. Bobby Petrino has been hired as the offensive coordinator at Arkansas. And for people who don't know what that audio was, that was Bobby Petrino with his neck brace and his scuffed up face at a press conference making up a fake story about how a nice lady flagged down someone. It was actually a woman who was on the motorcycle with him, who he'd been having an affair with, who worked in the athletic department, who he got a job for, who he got money for. Like, the entire thing is insane, and, you know, that was in 2012. That was a long time ago.
You're welcome.
I forgot about that.
But another, yeah, great find. But also, there's this, I guess, this idea that Bobby Petrino is still an offensive genius.
Yeah.
I said this yesterday on another win over Jared and Jared versus Joe. Chip Kelly was that guy. And still, like when Tennessee and everyone's talking about Chip Kelly, like, that would be terrible. And we've seen it at UCLA. Chip Kelly had a moment in time, and this happens a lot. And you could kind of look at the Browns offense maybe, but I think it's still pretty effective. And there's some things that just, like, if you execute them, they'll work. But Chip Kelly had a moment in time at Oregon where people could not deal with that offense.
Yeah.
And he had great players running it too. You know, don't get me wrong, but, you know, he didn't really – I mean, that program didn't even have NFL quarterbacks until Mariota came along. He was – you know, then he was gone. It was his successor. But he had that moment in time where that offense was so ahead of everybody else. He was an absolute commodity. He was a disaster in the NFL with 2 franchises, and it's just – he's at UCLA. I mean, I guess he gets another year there. Bobby Petrino reminds me of that a little bit. In that, you know, Bobby Petrino has had this reputation as being an offensive genius, but when is the last time we actually saw that on the field?
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be the Arkansas interim coach next year, 6 games into the season, because Sam Pittman's going to get fired. Bobby Petrino did an interview with Chris Lowe, ESPN, with a lot of, you know, let's really appreciate Sam reaching out and trying. Coach Pittman had the, all right, quote, "I've always been a Razorback fan, root for them, know how hard this last season's been. So when Coach Pittman had the idea of me coming back, I was immediately interested. Like I said, it was almost a dream," end quote. Sam Pittman, this was your idea? Is that true? I mean, he's just going to replace you when you get fired next year. I mean, the whole thing, Hunter Yurachek, they're all fired. Yeah. I'll tell you right now that a year from now, we will sit here and they will all be out of the job. All of them.
I agree.
Yurachek, Petrino, I think, and Pittman. I guess Petrino will get his chance to be interim coach of Arkansas again.
Which is amazing.
You know, and I guess maybe if they do well, they'll stick with him. But what? If there are any Arkansas fans out there right now, do you have any excitement about this? Like, well, it's just not 2012 anymore.
Well, and this is the other thing. Everything you just said, I'm with you. The other thing, like from the Arkansas perspective, it's like sometimes is there not somebody around there that says, "Hey guys, you know, we've kind of gone down this road before. let's do something else. Let's maybe take a look elsewhere at offensive coordinator. Not look, there have been more serious infractions committed by people than what Bobby Petrino did at Arkansas. But sometimes it's just good to leave the past in the past, And it feels like this is just something where it feels like somebody in Arkansas's inner circle there should have looked around and said, hey, guys, do we really think this is a good idea to bring in Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator in 2023?
I mean, yeah, who right, like who the heck? I mean, you want your AD to do his job, but how could there be no one in the administration saying, Hunter, what are you talking about? I mean, I got Blake on the text line saying, woo pig suey, Rex, don't mess with Bobby. He made Arkansas great. We're glad he is back. Really? You are glad he's back. This is exciting. This is exciting for Arkansas fans? Okay. That's one. If anybody has anything to counter that, I'd love to hear it. But here's another thing, and this is something that this goes back a long way for me. Actually, I mentioned on Jared, and Jared has some dealings, of course, as a Louisville grad who used to cover him up there. I'm going to see if I can find this tweet from Stephen Godfrey about this. Stephen Godfrey has covered college football for a long time, and this is another poor job of me not being ready to have something. Yeah, here we go. So there's some tweets. Some of these players are excited. Yes, Bobby. All right. Stephen Godfrey. So Stephen Godfrey says, so it's actually Petrino tweeted out a picture of him and Ryan Mallett, who, of course, tragically died, in Florida this past year. So Stephen Godfrey quote tweets that say, quote, "This is touching, but in 20-ish years of working this business, I've never heard about a coach more demeaning to his players, assistants, and support staff than Bobby Petrino," end quote. And Stephen Godfrey's not the only person who said that. So, I mean, he better be a freaking genius.
Yeah, better be.
Look.
Well, by the way, KJ Jefferson is expected to enter the transfer portal as well. So,
right.
Look, I know things did not go great for KJ Jefferson and Arkansas offensively this year. So it's not a surprise that that's happening and that people are moving on there. But you are going to have to find another quarterback now.
And I suppose he could get in there, and this could be, drive up price and come back. It's possible. But, it's just there's other people. Nate says, I got a Razorback friend. He's a good coach. There's several that want him back in Arkansas. Like, move on. Get someone new. Get someone who's coming into their good coaching. Michigan State just hired Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. I feel terrible for Oregon State because he's a very good coach. He's a young coach, early 40s. He's coming into his best coaching. All these Michigan State fans want a freaking Urban Meyer. Again, it's like the Kansas fans were excited about Les Miles. All right, come to Kansas. Charlie Weiss. No, get someone who's about to have their best coaching, not someone whose time has already come and passed, not to mention all the problematic things about Urban Meyer. And I don't – Arkansas fans, it's not going to go well for you. I'm sorry.
I can't talk about this anymore. The first thing I when you Google Bobby Petrino is the picture of him in the neck brace. And I can't have a serious conversation about it when I'm looking at this picture right now.
It's an all-time. And that was a great – right around 2012, 2013, that was a very popular, and if it was done well, very good Halloween outfit. Yes. By Petrino neck brace.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. And as we do every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. I hope you and the family had a wonderful Thanksgiving last week.
I appreciate it. How you guys doing this morning?
We're doing really well. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, Charles, we've got some Titans things that we'll get into here in just a few minutes. But I do want to start on the Rodgers front. So Rodgers gets his practice window activated yesterday. He's back on the practice field for the Jets. Jets are 4-7 right now, so very quickly falling out of it in the AFC playoff picture. What do you make of, number one, Rodgers' progress to get back to this point? And do you believe that he's actually going to try to play, even if maybe by the time he's ready to play, the Jets are out of the playoff race?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if in terms of the win-loss record, if his goal is, okay, let's look at the landscape by the end of December, if it's this idea that, late December he wants to get into a game, the postseason, to me, one more loss, they're done. I don't understand why he would risk himself for the win-loss record if they have another loss in the next couple of weeks. And I think that's likely. So to me, you go back to his initial comments, he said he would weigh sort of what's left ahead for the New York Jets. And there's just not a lot to gain in terms of this singular season in terms of the postseason. Now, that said, I do think when you look at the bigger picture, to me, Rodgers returning to practice, whether he comes back into the games or not, it starts the clock on 2024. Like that to me is the big takeaway of what's going on right now, is that 2024 basically starts for Aaron Rodgers. It starts for the Jets now that he's out there once again, spinning it, and you have the team website, posting clips of him, and it's, in a way, I do think that this helps Joe Douglas, the general manager, keep his job, Robert Saleh, the head coach, keep his job, Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator, keep his job, because Rodgers is able to step in now late in the season, whether he plays or not, and remind people, yeah, it's been a horrible season, but remember what this was like prior to September. Remember what, let's go back to Hard Knocks. Let's go back to this offseason where everything was so positive and the gamble felt so right. And then we've lost it over the last couple of months. I don't know that there's anything to gain in 2023 at this point, other than reminding people of the reason why everyone wagered their jobs on Aaron Rodgers heading into this season. Given what has happened over the course of the season, given the reality that the Jets could lose out, do I think Joe Douglas, his job could be on the line? Yeah, absolutely, of course. Do I think Robert Saleh's job could be on the line? Absolutely. But Woody Johnson, the owner, was on board with this trade, and I think part of Rodgers coming back into the fold in practice is reminding Woody that, hey, you were on board with this too. You were in the middle of this trade, and even if they don't make the playoffs this year, it's just sort of Rodgers reminding everyone what this was all about, and that 2024 was part of the equation when this all began so many months ago.
We've talked about the utter stupidity of people, and I didn't even realize till today, like media members questioning whether he actually tore his Achilles. But the more, which is, I tell you what, anything can be a conspiracy. But does this represent, Charles? Look, we saw
Cam Akers.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We saw Cam Akers come back ridiculously fast too. Sure. Is this the start of an approach, a procedure medically that these injuries are going to be shorter timeline now?
Yeah, the speed bridge. Everyone, that's the one thing about the Achilles, is that with this repair, Cam Akers got the speed bridge, Rodgers got the speed bridge, which is just a sort of different approach with the procedure that allows people to push that timeline. And I think, it's interesting. We kind of had this talk about this on our podcast, where when you think about big major sports injuries over the years, there was a time where like Tommy John surgery in baseball, that was it. Like if you had Tommy John surgery, you were probably done. You're toast. You're done. And that's changed. We've seen the surgery progress to the point where not only are you able to return from it, we've seen baseball pitchers return from it and actually be better players on the other side of it. And, ACLs we've all been around long enough that there was a time where ACLs, it wasn't really that long ago that ACLs were a potential career killer in the NFL and the NBA. That's changed considerably. I think this is now sort of that next injury where when you get past Tommy John, when you get past ACLs, it's like Achilles continue to be this thing where in the NBA or the NFL, it can dramatically alter the course of your career. Well, I think Rodgers has an opportunity if he can come back. I mean, even getting on the field, let's be honest, even getting on the field at this point or coming back, which I don't think will happen, but he's taken Cam Akers, which was the outlier, 6 months, even with the speed bridge. Wow, how could he come back in only 6 months? And Rodgers has advanced that a little bit and pushed the outlier end of it a little bit. But I think medically, the one thing we could see out of this is sort of an explanation from doctors. Why is he able to do this? Why has the Achilles gone from an absolute hammerlock, you're out for at least a year and let's see what you look like coming back, to maybe now 6 months with the speed bridge is a little more of the norm? I do think that medically that's one thing we could see come out of this, that surgeries with Achilles are starting to advance to the stage that it is possible that athletes are not sitting out for an entire year and their careers aren't instantly in jeopardy the second they tear their Achilles.
So, Charles, the Titans get this huge win and a beautiful display of football on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers, 17-10.
Beautiful display.
It was, yes, just gorgeous out there to watch. Really enjoyed it. In the immediate aftermath of that, David Tepper is screaming in the hallway outside, and the next day Frank Reich gets fired, and then we have the David Tepper press conference ensuing after that. What do you make of the that decision to fire Frank Reich and the dumpster fire that is the Carolina Panthers right now?
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened after Tennessee. That I think it has to be something in Tepper's mind that over the course of the season he sits there and goes, okay, we took Bryce Young number 1 overall. We've seen C.J. Stroud do everything that he's done. We saw Anthony Richardson up until a point where he was too injured, obviously, to continue this season. We saw him flash to the point where there's this question about, geez, maybe, Anthony Richardson's ceiling is what it is, and could we have considered him a little more strongly at number 1? And then you get to the point where you're like Levis, you're sitting there and you're saying, what is going on? This is someone that, fell down the draft board to number 2 overall, and although Levis didn't have a great game, he did flash at points in that game that probably made I think David Tepper was probably frustrated with. It's interesting to me, though, now that we're on the other side of this firing with Frank Reich, where I think if you want an illustration of today what a bad owner is, and that I don't want to just straight up say David Tepper's a bad owner, but the one thing with when you have an owner who is meddling, it used to be sort of like, what does the roster look like? Who's playing, who's not playing. The one thing that David Tepper did with Frank Reich that I think came back to haunt him is telling Frank Reich when he came in, you have to have an experienced staff. Matt Rule, there were issues with not having experience on his staff. I don't care if you know these guys or not. You need to go out and sort of assemble this all-star cast of coaches. Well, you got all these guys together. A lot of them didn't know each other. They didn't know how to trust each other. They didn't have prior relationships. Then you go through all the losing. And from calls that I made in this situation, I wrote about this. I mean, like infighting was like a word that was used for the staff of the Carolina Panthers, not only because they had chosen some coaches that Frank Reich wasn't necessarily familiar with, but they also kept 2 holdovers from the previous staff. Those 2 holdovers were close to David Tepper. It's to me, one of the more modern examples of how an ownership group or an owner can impress himself upon a head coach and have it go wrong. And I'll point also to Doug Peterson. Part of the reason why Doug Peterson left Philadelphia was because Jeffrey Lurie got to the point where he still wanted to tinker with Doug Peterson's staff in Philadelphia. Doug Peterson said, "No, I'm done. If you want to do this, we need to part company." They did. He went to Jacksonville, a place where Shad Khan was like, it's your staff, do what you want. And you can kind of see, if you have a veteran coach who knows what they're doing, let them do what they're going to do. Don't screw with the staff, because under pressure, under losses, you're going to see a lot of really negative things happen inside the organization. So I do think part of that, part of what Tepper did with that staff had a lot to do with the failures in Carolina and sort of where they're at right now.
We'll have more with Charles Robinson coming up next. We'll get into some Titans talk with him. Lots to get to in what's been a busy week here on the program talking Tennessee Titans. We'll have more with Charles next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. We continue our conversation with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles joins us every Thursday morning from 8 to 8:30 here on the program.
Okay, Charles, I'm trying to remember. Let's see if we can recap everything that's happened. Okay, so because we didn't have you last week, right? So
That's
we
correct.
had you a couple weeks. Okay, so we have talked about the Ben Volen Boston Globe story. And Robert
we're going to
Kraft
get into Greg Bedard. That's what we're going to get into.
Well,
Let's
then,
go
I'm going to go timeline. And then on Thanksgiving, my coworker, Diana Rossini, had a story about Titans higher-ups,
right.
Being happy with Vrabel long-term. And then 3 days later, I guess, did it come out Sunday? Saturday,
Correct,
Sunday, whatever.
Sunday.
Greg Bedard comes out with a piece that, frankly, I've said this a few times this week. I think that it signifies to me that the Patriots are absolutely making noise on this for whatever end that may be, but they're making noise on this. But also I thought some of the Rand stuff that was just thrown in there was a wee bit irresponsible. But where do you view this entire situation right now?
Okay, well, first off, there's 6 games left on the schedule. That's a lifetime. All right, people need to understand that. Like, we're talking about all this stuff, and it's because you have franchises out there that are starting to go, okay, we're probably moving on from our guy. Belichick, that's becoming more of a possibility in terms of the Patriots separating from him. So let's talk about who the list could be, who ownership likes. In terms of what Greg Bedard reported, I'll tell you this, like, historically, I've known Greg for a long time. He's a very good reporter. I think he has very, very strong ties to Patriots ownership. We talked about Ben Volen. I've told you guys before, Robert Kraft, the Kraft family, they have an affinity for Mike Vrabel. Okay, like, we can just go ahead and say that. And so a lot of what you will see, at least partially, is driven by, hey, if you are going to separate from Bill, who out there do you respect? What coaches have your eye in terms of the success that they've had or what they could bring into the building that maybe meshes with the culture and the way you like to operate and maybe even have been here before. So that's why Mike Vrabel's name is going to come up, because the Kraft family respects him, thinks a lot of him, and if they're going to have a head coaching list, he is absolutely, I'm just going to tell you right now, absolutely, I'll say it one more time, absolutely going to be on the list of coaches that they would consider pursuing, okay? In terms of, I think it gets a little speculative when it's like, is Vrabel trying to force his way out of Tennessee? Or would the Titans trade Vrabel at this point? So we're dealing both with Greg Bedard and Diana Rossini at that point, and I think there is a level of speculation that occurs when you say, hey, they're not trading him, or hey, the Patriots are definitely going to pursue this guy when there's still 6 games left on the schedule. There's time here that has to pass, and there are things that can happen that can affect Mike Vrabel and Tennessee. There are things that can affect who New England would ultimately pursue if they let go of Vrabel. So I think we're a little bit premature here. Now, that said, I do think Diana's right. I think that the Titans' first inclination would be, we don't want to get rid of Mike. We like Mike. Like, the future is Mike. We feel good, and it's not our intention to move away from him. And if they were to move away from him, you'd want a lot in trade, right? You're certainly not going to just walk away from him. And if you're going to deal him, you're going to want a lot in compensation. But again, as I told you, I think the last time we talked was a couple weeks ago, that's a conversation that's got to happen between Mike and ownership, right? Before you even get there. So there's that end of it. And then in terms of Greg Bedard, I do think that the interest is there. I think it's speculative until you know for sure that there's no way, shape, or form that Bill Belichick can return in 2024 for the New England Patriots. I don't think that's absolutely done at this point. So there is this certainly a speculative end of it where it comes to, is Mike trying to force his way out? Oh, he didn't know Rand Carthon very well when the two of them were put together. I think there's some merit to that. I do believe it's not like these two had a long historied relationship. It's not like they'd spent a lot of time together at all before they ultimately came together the day that Rand was hired. But I also don't think that it's an absolute certainty that it's not working or it can't work, or that, Mike is just like, well, geez, they brought in this general manager I don't necessarily know, and now I want my way out. And we're not talking to each other. And I don't know that any of that's true. I think that's kind of, you're getting out onto a limb at that point. I understand that at the point of hiring, there were certainly a lot of people behind the scenes talking about, well, geez, these two guys don't really have a relationship together. Is this going to work? Some time has passed since then.
And then there's a lot of losing. And there's a lot of losing that happens right away. Right.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of losing. But I can tell you, and I'll be completely honest with you here, I don't know how that's manifested itself. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you Mike and Rand, they just, it's a weird fit. And so it's just not going to work. I don't know that I can say that, especially in the middle of things now. You get to the end of the season, you start to measure what did happen, what didn't, the pieces that are in place. And I've seen staffs that I thought, and when I say staffs, I mean coaching staffs in front offices, that I thought were slightly disjointed. And then they get to the end of the season, they start to lay things out. They look at the cap situation. They look at the pieces that are in place. And they're like, yeah, no, we feel pretty good. We feel like we can move forward, together, and everything's fine. So there was a time where I thought Les Snead and Sean McVay weren't necessarily going to fit that first year. And then they end up in a Super Bowl. And sometimes I talk to Les Snead about, like, hey, remember that time where I thought you were going to get fired after, Jeff Fisher went out the door, and then you win a Super Bowl as a general manager, and you and Sean McVay are at every turn have each other's back. That can be achieved. I just, again, we're 6 games away from the end of the season. It's not all done. Give it a little time. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, and a lot of it's being driven, as Joe and Robby, I think you suspect, a lot of this is being driven by the inner workings of the Patriots and the pressing question of, like, hey, if Bill goes, who do you like? That's where a lot of this is coming from.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's. I mean, I even look at the Bedard story. I always think about these things in terms of, like, how does a story get started? I mean, Diana had a report, and then it just felt to me like, hey, Greg, you want something? I got something for you. Like, let's send one back over the bow. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe I'm reading that wrong, but it feels like they're really aggressive here right now in getting this out there for whatever reason, which kind of feels to me like Vrabel is their guy, but I don't know.
Yeah, and not to I'm not going to sit here and out people on my side of the fence journalistically, but I would say when I hear things from Diana, I tend to believe that is coming from inside the Titans organization, whether it's ownership, front office, coaching staff. When I hear things from Greg, I know that's coming from inside the Patriots organization. And, so you sort of know how these two maybe warring reports come about. And at times, sometimes these things can be posturing. Maybe ownership or front office or coaching staff in the Titans, they're like, man, we're hearing all these rumblings coming out of New England. There needs to be some element of a response. Who do we have relationships with? Who do we trust? Who can we talk to about where we're at right now? And then conversely, the same thing can happen in New England, where it's like, well, we're hearing that there's no way that the Tennessee Titans are going to move on from Mike Vrabel, and there's going to be an extension. He's going to be here a long time. Well, then, again, inside the Titans inside the Patriots organization, you have people who are like, we'll see about that. Maybe look at this situation in Tennessee, and it's fascinating how these things all sort of percolate in our world as we move forward. Everybody has, organizations that they're more deeply sourced with, or they have trust with, and that's how you'll often see two reporters or two groups of reporters sort of on opposite sides of a story that there's some truth to each report, but really none of it's hashed out until the season's over and people have an opportunity to sit down and go, realistically, where are we at as an organization and where do we want to move forward? And I will tell you right now, I don't think Tennessee or New England fully knows that answer with 6 games left on the schedule.
Charles, great stuff as always, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and we'll talk to you next week.
I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Absolutely. You as well. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. Interesting. We'll react to what Charles had to say there. Take your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025, our phone number. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecallstn.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Thanks to Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports for being with us in the last segment. Some interesting thoughts there from Charles on the Mike Vrabel New England Patriots saga that continues to swirl. If you missed that conversation, go back and search Robby and Rexrode, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. That will be up later this morning.
Momentarily.
So looking forward to that. Momentarily, as Nick Keiser says. Momentarily. Any moment. I like it. Joe, what did you think of what Charles had to say there on the Greg Bedard article and the ongoing saga between Vrabel and the New England Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting stuff. Makes sense, and that's the thing. It's like, are they definitely done with Belichick? People think that. Is Gerard Mayo really their top candidate, or not, or is he just? I mean, to me, based on just achievement as a coach, I would think that Vrabel would be a much safer bet than someone who's never been a head coach. I mean, obviously, Gerard Mayo is a rising star, so. It's like one of those things where it's like, well, you don't want someone to get away, but is this person ready to be the head coach right now and follow up Bill Belichick? So, I mean, what he said is basically how I look at the situation too. The Patriots are saying what they're saying. Titans are saying what they're saying. There's still information to come. And, Kyle's here says in the text, I said, really wish you guys would have pushed for his thoughts on the demeaning comments about Rand. That is what Titans fans want to hear. He sounds like a friend of Bedard, which is why you may not have asked that specifically. No, I did not. I mean, no. I mean, NFL media, a lot of people know each other, but, I mean, it doesn't mean that they won't, and Charles has, call out things that they think are wrong. I just – like the Rand thing, again, this is why I didn't even write it in the column, and I know it's been a big topic this week. I just don't think it's worth, it's unfortunate that it's out there. And I agree with what Jared said, which is like it's out there, you can't unring the bell. I don't really feel like ringing it more though. I just think, Kaharski came on here yesterday and said he has heard something. I really think, unfortunately, some people are going to run and think this is like some massive thing, and I think that's a mistake. I think it's unfortunate. I don't like what Bedard did. I think his editor, or he doesn't have an editor. I think he needs an editor on that. But no, I did not avoid that specifically because he's friends of him or whatever. I think that the Vrabel aspect of this is the more. I mean, Rand Carthon's going to be the GM of the Tennessee. I feel real confident in saying that, and we're going to find out how good of a GM he is in terms of the choices of players he makes. So this other stuff, to me, is the Patriots making noise to make noise, and that's what they're doing right now.
There is one thing that I hear what Charles is saying, but I'm not sure that I agree, especially from the Patriots standpoint. And that is like, there's still 6 games left. There's time for things to change. Like, it kind of feels like the Patriots thing just kind of is what it is. They're not good. I mean, yesterday, Mac Jones is at practice just kind of standing there watching Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham throw the ball around. So it looks like the Mac Jones era is done in New England. They're not making the playoffs. I mean, even if they roll off a couple of wins, Robert Kraft, and Charles has talked about this on our show, Robert Kraft hasn't been happy with Belichick and the results that they've had the last couple of years. And that was when they were still competitive. And in one of those seasons made the playoffs, and the following season just barely missed out on the playoffs. So, I mean, they're not making the playoffs. They're not going to be close to it this year. So, like, I don't know how much is changing between now and then from the Patriots. Like, it feels like Belichick is done.
Well, see, but
it feels like, to me anyway, and I have no scientific formula to prove this, it feels like they're zeroing in on trying for Vrabel.
But see, but the one thing about that I will argue is you could say the same thing about them as you can say here about Vrabel, which is don't fire him, trade him. So is it from their perspective, do they have to make that happen first?
Maybe.
And at least, like, are they making that happen? Is it possible, and then you're definitely firing him? Or is it only if we can get something for him? I don't know. I mean, I would agree. It seems like the writing's on the wall.
I think it's going to be, and I don't know this, but I think it's either going to be you're trading him to Washington or whoever, or it's Chargers. A mutual separation. Like, I don't know that I see a scenario where Belichick's back next year as coach of the Patriots. Now, again, I'm not tied in the Patriots. I have no idea. But it feels like with all the smoke around it right now, it's hard for me to get to Belichick being back there next year.
Yeah, and if you're Belichick, you're not dumb. You can also look around and see all these things happening and like, wow, there's people in this organization who sure are making a fuss about Mike Vrabel right now.
Well, and here's the other part of it, like from Belichick's perspective, because we talk so much about the Patriots and what they think. Like Belichick, regardless of whether or not he wants to keep doing this moving forward and keep coaching, which I think he does, like, does he want to go through a rebuild at his age? I mean, my guess would be the answer would be no. So that's why, like, if it does reach the end here, what if Belichick has interest in the Chargers job or whoever?
I think a lot of people
that would
have
be
interest.
more intriguing to me than signing up for a rebuild for 3-4 years with the Patriots at that point.
Right.
If I'm him.
Vrabel's like, Amy, trade me to the Chargers, not the Patriots. No, I agree. I think a lot of people would look at the Chargers job and say, that guy screwed it up, and there's no excuse to screw it up to that extent. Please give me a crack at that roster and that quarterback. They've completely blown Justin Herbert's rookie deal.
They have. I mean, they hadn't fired Staley yet. Maybe they're bringing him back.
I guess that, well, until it's over, you know. Now, I think that I guess maybe if you're comparing the two situations and that idea of like you still have to – I think there's definitely truth to that here, isn't there? I mean, I don't know where it's going to go. How are they going to play? How's Levis going to play?
Exactly.
All that stuff. I mean, or did Kaharski see Rand and Mike talk to each other on the practice field or not?
Right.
You know,
well, that's what I'm saying, though. Like,
they
I
fist
feel
bump
like
each other when they walk by each other.
I feel like the Patriots situation is a little bit more determined right now than the Titans is, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, you know, how does that impact Vrabel? Like, it was cool to hear like Charles's explanation of like the media side of this and kind of how that works in the NFL and what that looks like, because I think that was illuminating for a lot of people to hear there. You know, I do think it's clear that regardless of if it's the Ben Volin article or if it's Greg Bedard, and Charles said this, like Robert Kraft loves him some Mike Vrabel based on his playing career there, all the things that we've talked about. So really the question about the Patriots that I have right now is, who does Robert Kraft love more, Mike Vrabel or Gerard Mayo? And if it is Vrabel, does he love Vrabel enough more to give up compensation to get in when Gerard Mayo's sitting right there as a potential head coach?
Yeah,
that's what it boils down to me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, you know, could you have both in some way and convince Mayo to be, you know, DC/associate head coach or whatever? And
maybe.
But like you said, I mean, that's compensation that you are. And I am confident in saying it's not going to be minor.
No,
it's going to be major compensation if it actually were to happen. Which is why I still think, I don't remember what my last percentage was, but like, you know, I got Vrabel back as Titan. I think Jared's like 10% or something. Like, what? No, I mean, I think Vrabel.
That he's back.
Yes. yeah, I know.
10%,
something like that. Jeez, I'm sure he'll text you here in a minute, but. I mean, I'm like, I don't know, 88%, which is still like, that leaves 12. That's a healthy, like I would have been at 90, I would have been at 99.9 not long ago.
Well, I agree with like the idea that, especially if there is legitimate interest from the Patriots, if there's legitimate interest from the Patriots and Mike Vrabel, there should be a 0% chance that he's fired by the Titans, because you're either bringing him back or you're trading. Like, no firing is going to happen at that point.
Of course. Yeah.
If you're smart.
Right. So, someone says, how do you trade Belichick when he's the man that also wears the hat? I'm like, well, the owner ultimately can still say, I'm trading you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Indy Ben has weighed in on the text line.
I thought Indy Ben abandoned us because the Titans are so crappy that he's like, I don't even need to troll Nashville radio anymore because, like, we're just well beyond you guys with Gardner Minshew magic.
Maybe so. Indy Ben says, for better or for worse, I fully expect Vrabel to be back as head coach, Carthon to be back as GM. The question is if that happens, will they actually fix the problems that have been ailing the Titans, most notably the offensive line, or will Vrabel continue to be stubborn with the investments there? This is from Indy Ben. weighing in on Titans Colts week.
And also identifying Vrabel as the stubborn with investments guy. Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. This offseason, it's a huge offseason. I expect him to be back too. I expect those two to be working together, and they have an absolutely gigantic offseason, and the spending better be there, or else I'm going to look not at Vrabel, not at Rand, but at Amy Adams Strunk.
Yeah, no question. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for Pred's Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode. Be the first caller, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer for the Preds tonight, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's time for Pred's Picks to click.
And a shot at the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are preferred so often. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is that time of the day. Time for Pred's Pick to Click on Robby and Rexrode, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. The Predators back in action tonight, taking on the Minnesota Wild. Puck drop at 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The return of John Hines tonight to Bridgestone Arena. The standings in Pred's Pick to Click are as follows. The listeners remain in first place with six correct answers. Joe Rexrode with some separation from Nick Keyser the other night, up to 4 correct answers with Philip Forsberg's overtime goal.
Thanks, Phil.
And now Nick Keyser, three correct answers. I remain at 2, so the struggle continues for Robby Stanley in this competition. With that in mind, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Caleb. Caleb, good morning. Who is your pick to click for the Nashville Predators?
Good morning. Good morning. So I had to stick with a hot hand to give me the mustache machine and Philip Forsberg.
Philip Forsberg, the selection. Caleb, thanks for calling in.
Caleb, you're 0 for 4? Is that right?
I'm 0 for 5.
That's tough.
We also need more people calling. Should not have this many cracks at it.
I'm helping you out, Joe.
Thank you, Caleb. We appreciate it. Philip Forsberg. Are you saying that Caleb's outlawed if he doesn't get it today?
Yeah, I mean, what's the limit?
How's he the first one calling in so
I
fast?
told him to take a few games out, and he's very fast at calling us.
Yeah, how's he beat everybody?
Does he just
hanging out in the
does
station?
he just know that it's the next segment if we said it earlier in the show and then
Maybe
we're gonna have to switch it up?
Why don't I think you need to be like caller starting now. Like, is he on the phone?
I'm not
hold
the one
whole
that
show?
says call. Robby out-cues it, so I don't do anything.
Oh, it's your fault.
You just blame me.
Okay, but so he calls after he says that. Is that right?
No, he waits until I've hit the break, and I usually have a call like 20 seconds later.
So before he says it.
No, I don't think so. He would hear it and then call.
We need to know so, Nick.
What are we doing?
We're outlawing Caleb. Cable. We're outlawing
Cable is outlawed.
Cable guy. But hopefully Phil doesn't score. Well, I guess I kind of feel bad for Caleb.
But you're trying to win a competition here, for God's sake.
That's right. So, sorry, Phil.
Forsberg off the board. Nick Keyser, your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
I'm going to go the captain, Roman Josi.
Okay. Captain. See if he scores tonight. You thinking power play? 5-on-5? What are we thinking?
I'm going to go 5-on-5.
Okay. Forsberg and Josi off the board. I am up next. I will go with Ryan O'Reilly, and he will be on the power play. So I'll go O'Reilly. Forsberg, Josi, O'Reilly off the board. Joe Rexrode, your pick to click.
Does Michael McCarron finish the hat trick one day later?
Well, maybe. I can probably safely say that no one's ever picked him in the history of competition. So if you want to be the first to do that.
Are you sure? I think maybe.
I'm not sure.
Maybe randomly he got thrown in there one time.
Okay, maybe. We did have a Jeremy Lozon once upon a time.
We've had some Cole Smiths, you know.
We have.
By the way, he's had some nice goals this year,
He
I'd like
has.
to point out. Well, I'll go Evangelista. How about a little Luke Evangelista?
Luke Evangelista. Forsberg, Josi, O'Reilly, Evangelista. The selections today in Pred's Pick to Click. Presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Going to be interesting tonight to see what the reaction is to John Hines, whether or not the Predators can get win number 7 in a row. Big one tonight at Bridgestone Arena. Should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Will Jared be in the crowd, and when they announce John Hines, will he be one of the boys? Boo! Yep.
I have word that he will not be there tonight.
Oh, that's too bad. I think that Jared should, if he's going to go to Titans games and he doesn't like a Vrabel decision, and he's boo! I think he should do the same thing at the press conference. When, if Mike Vrabel's like, well, we just got to coach better and play better. I just want Vrabel, boo! Like, don't pretend to be all professional and ask a question. Boo him! I say you be the panicky fanboy at all times.
I'm here. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Why isn't he going to be there tonight?
I think he's doing something. I think he may be working.
Huh?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think he's on like Sirius. Or
Oh,
something.
okay. He's on Sirius. Okay. I was like, what? Like what? Jared's got it.
An
Jared's,
extended Stillman and Company.
What is his moonlighting thing? I mean, I saw last week he tweeted a picture from Deja Vu. Like, what kind of moonlighting is Jared doing around town?
Well, I mean, I think the text was from Caroline. This is like,
okay. Well, you all right? Well,
it was out there. I asked Caroline on Twitter. I was like, "How's the pregame there? What's going on?"
This is still. It's still better to get a conversation like this shorter than the one we had yesterday.
We'll take it all to Twin Peaks, folks.
There
beautiful.
we go. Nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and many sponsors we can mention.
You calling a
at
shot?
the end of this show.
Preds win tonight? What do you think? Or does John Hines come in here and spoil the party?
I kind of think John Hines might come in and spoil the party.
That's what I think.
You know?
Yeah.
When the Preds are on a heater, and this is just sort of a disruption. You know, it's like their old coach comes in. It's got to be a little weird for those guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm not saying that's going to just totally throw them off their game, but the Wild, they come out and they play really well. It's the first time out. We talked earlier in the show about the phenomenon of the new coach in the NHL.
It's an NHL thing.
Yeah, it's still a pretty good team. They've underachieved, and they're hard to play against, I bet.
I bet they are, too. I bet they forecheck the heck out of the Preds tonight.
Yeah,
baby.
so.
Gotta find a way to break out of the zone.
Wild 3, Preds 2.
I'll go Wild 4, Preds 3.
Okay.
An offensive explosion.
A little bit of fire wagon hockey that you expect. So Brunette style to win out, basically.
Yeah,
Is that
pretty much.
what we're talking about?
So congratulations to Predators fan on the impending 6-1 win for Nashville tonight.
Exactly. You can't call us WHMR anymore.
It's going to be a fascinating game tonight. I said it earlier. They're entering they've played a lot of hockey lately, and they're entering into a stretch starting tonight where tonight against Minnesota, Saturday afternoon against the Rangers, who are the best team in the league right now, and Sunday against Buffalo. So 3 games in 4 days. Oh, boy.
Dang it, Dennis, on the text line. Just look at it. The show's ending. Just look at Dennis's text.
Okay, I will look at it. I'm almost afraid to look at it.
It's a variation of call your shot.
615-737-1025. We'll take your
Darn
thoughts
you,
all day
Dennis.
long here on the station on our text line. That does it for us today on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow from Duncan out in Franklin. Come hang with us. Chasing Big Joe up next. This is 102.5, 106.3 The Game.